I'm really excited to talk today about something that has been super interesting to me for the last couple days. So, a couple days ago, Cosmopolitan came out and said that they aren't going to publish any more content about the G-spot. So, no more sex positions for the G-spot or how-to guides or maps to the G-spot. And they came out and wrote this awesome article about why the G-spot is a lie and kind of discussed their role in disseminating kind of medical misinformation to people for a really long time about the G-spot, which is super, super cool to me that a magazine and a publication as big as Cosmo with such a big reader base that reaches so many people with vaginas would kind of take some accountability like that and talk about where they might have gotten something wrong. And for those of you who don't know what the G-spot is, it was kind of conceived to be this erogenous zone in the vagina on the anterior portion of the vaginal wall. So I've got a diagram right here, and I'll kind of point out some stuff. We've got the rectum right here, anus, vaginal canal, and then the bladder and the urethra. And so the G-spot was believed to be in between the vagina and the kind of urinary tract area. So right here on the front anterior wall of the vagina. The idea was that you could kind of stimulate this like universal on button that would cause a woman to climax, and there was kind of idea still today that you can do this come hither motion. As many women can attest, a lot of people find that to be really uncomfortable, and it kind of leads them to think, am I broken? Do I not have a G-spot? What does this mean? So partners out there who are still trying that trick, maybe it's time to stop that. There are some really interesting statistics. Where is the G-spot is Googled more times than Michael Jordan and Michael Jackson combined. 82% of men believe that every woman has a G-spot, and 84% of women do as well, so it's not just kind of a male problem. Women believe this as well. 44% of women have felt frustration, confusion, or anxiety while trying to locate a G-spot in their body, and 31% say their partner has gotten frustrated looking for it. And probably the most sobering of all these statistics is that 11% of women reported that they avoid sex altogether under the assumption that they don't have a G-spot and they are incapable of orgasming, which is pretty crazy. So I'm just gonna kind of give you guys some highlights from this awesome article. And shouts out to the editors, Andrea Stanley and Sasha DeGersdorf. You guys did an amazing job with your research, and I thought this article was super, super cool. That's why I want to share it with everyone else. So the story kind of begins in the 80s. There was a group of researchers who kind of dubbed this zone the G-spot. They named it after the German researcher Dr. Ernst Grafenberg, who was apparently the first person to locate this tissue. After a bunch of small and like really non-conclusive tests in the 80s, Cosmo came out with an article in 1982 talking about the G-spot. And after that, people kind of went wild with it. It was on TV shows, it was in movies, like sex toy companies started designing things specifically for the G-spot. Since then, Cosmo has continued publishing a lot about it, and they haven't really stopped until now. They've potentially been maybe the biggest source of misinformation about this, which is why them writing this article is so cool. So a lot of doctors believed in the G-spot. In fact, I've seen a lot of doctors on television talking publicly about the G-spot on talk shows and on late night shows, and kind of serving as authority figures about this kind of spreading more misinformation. But throughout the 2000s, people kind of started to question what was going on with this, and they started many more trials and surveys, and we're looking at pathologic specimens of women's reproductive organs and using biochemical markers, and basically reviewed all the data that had been looked at before and have come to the conclusion that it doesn't exist. Or we are just really, really misunderstanding what is going on in a woman's kind of erectile erogenous clitoral zone, basically. So today, despite all this information that we now know, the G-spot economy is like totally booming. There are G-spot vibrators and lube, there are G-spot workshops for people to pay for and attend, shots and procedures, and people who literally like devote their whole lives to helping women find the G-spot. There are people whose sole expertise is in G-spots. People will hire an expert to come and help them or them and their partner because they believe that they are not achieving their full sexual potential, which is causing a lot of people distress, feeling like they're broken or inadequate, and that's a problem for the women who are really just trying to be normal. And that might not just be like totally wrong. There very well is internal stimulation that women can have, but it's a lot less likely due to this separate spot called the G-spot, and a lot more likely due to the internal projections of the clitoris kind of going around the vaginal canal. So the clitoris that we see is just the external portion, and as people like to say, the tip of the iceberg. And there's actually a much bigger organ that protrudes into the body and almost kind of surrounds the vaginal canal. And it's much more likely that internal vaginal orgasms are just a different type of clitoral stimulation and a different type of clitoral orgasm. It's erectile tissue, just like a penis, but kind of differently designed and in ways that most people, including doctors, don't really know much about, because the truth is that medical students only get about 5 to 8 hours of sex education during their education in med school, which is pretty crazy. But what women are probably feeling is this internal stimulation of the clitoris, which is pretty cool, but it's not necessarily meaning that everyone can feel that, because what people are finding out now is that women's clitorises are located kind of not always in the same place. Some are a little bit to the right, some are maybe a little bit to the left, some are higher up, some are a little bit lower, and that has a huge effect on whether or not you're able to achieve orgasm during penetrative sex, which is why most women require clitoral stimulation, which is much easier accomplished outside the body. Women can experience pleasure in so many ways. It's not just through genital stimulation. There are women who can orgasm with literally their thoughts. They don't need any stimulation. There's women who touching other parts of their bodies can cause them to orgasm. So what we're seeing is that it's probably a lot more likely that a female orgasmic potential has more factors that are emotional and mental and involve intimacy and connection than just some magic button that you can push and like wake someone up to have an orgasm. So the problem is that we really need more research, and it's pretty impossible at the moment with the hurdles in the scientific community, and it would be ideal to do studies on living specimens instead of cadavers, because living people with vaginas have orgasms, and looking at those pathways would be a lot more useful on a living model. So many women report feeling inadequate and thinking that they can't have a true vaginal orgasm, and this is what leads to that 11% of people just avoiding sex altogether because they don't even think it's worth it. Or they will get a line from a partner saying, well, this worked on my last partner and I don't know why it's not working on you, which can be really traumatizing for women, causing them to feel abnormal or broken, like they weren't made right. It's time that women get accurate information about their bodies. And so I'm gonna leave you guys with my favorite quote from the article. Again, super well written. I'll link it in my bio because I thought it was so amazing, but it's from Dr. Emily Nagoski, and she says that in the early 80s there was research that was really putting the clitoris front and center. Then along came the G-spot research, creating this pressure for women to be orgasmic from vaginal stimulation, even though most women's bodies just aren't wired that way. And if you really think about why vaginal stimulation matters so much, it's because it puts the focus on male pleasure. I'll leave you guys with that. I hope you enjoyed this, and this probably won't be the last time you hear me talking about orgasms, but let me know what you think. Thank you.